tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So just to let you know, whenever you have questions, please ask.
Can I ask you, why did we start with the Sahana Bhavatu? Because that's a Sanskrit prayer and it's not necessarily specific to Krishna.
Yes, this is very traditional prayer that is recited before study.
Okay.
So it invokes auspiciousness. Also in the prayer, it is said that let's have good relationship between a teacher and a student so that the transmission of transcendental knowledge is proper.
I see.
It's very like traditional prayer that it can be said in every tradition.
Okay.
So in our seminar, we will address 3 topics. First topic is how Srimad Bhagavatam is the emperor among all pramanas, or how this is the greatest knowledge that we can receive, Srimad Bhagavatam. Then second, we will establish how Krishna is the highest manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And at the end, and the most important topic, how Krishna's greatest pleasure is to serve and worship his devotees, although he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So first, Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest pramana. So we know there are mainly 3 ways of achieving knowledge. The first one is called pratyaksha, or basically it means to gather knowledge with our senses. However, this way of getting knowledge is imperfect because our senses by nature are imperfect. Then second way of getting knowledge is called anumana, or it means like reasoning or mental speculation sometimes it's called. The problem with this way of gathering knowledge is that all the reasoning of the mind is happening with the information that is coming from the senses. But if the senses are giving imperfect information to the mind, already the conclusions of the mind will be imperfect because they are based on an imperfect basis. And in this way, we are coming to the conclusion that the real way of getting knowledge is Shabda, or spiritual sound, the knowledge which is given in the Vedas. Why we are saying that this is a perfect way to get knowledge? Because this knowledge is coming from perfect source, which is Krishna himself, the Supreme God, Supreme Lord. And this knowledge is transmitted through the disciplic succession of perfect personalities which are giving this knowledge from one to the other without changing it, without adding anything from themselves or subtracting anything. So in this way, this knowledge stays perfect. Now,
not only that, but it is as it is described in Bhagavatam itself. Bhagavatam became more relishable when it was touched by the lotus lips of Shukadeva Goswami. So the knowledge not only remains perfect, but actually when it is elaborated upon by the great devotees, it becomes more and more tasteful for the connoisseurs of the spiritual rasa. So in a sense, the spiritual potency increases all the time. It's ever increasing happiness and bliss.
Yeah, so basically, we understand how the meaning of the Vedas, it's not so easy to be understood. And that's why, especially in Kali Yuga, the essence of the Vedas was presented in the Upanishads. These are the philosophical parts of the Vedas. And their wisdom was summarized and presented in the form of greatest philosophical book known as Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra. Now, because Vedanta Sutra is very difficult to be understood, actually the author himself of Vedanta Sutra, Srila Vyasadeva, presented a commentary or explanation what is the meaning of Vedanta Sutra. And this natural commentary is Srimad Bhagavatam. So actually this seminar mainly is based on the knowledge that we are getting from Srimad Bhagavatam. Now we will say a little bit more about the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam so that we can appreciate this amazing book. In Srimad Bhagavatam itself, there is a verse which is saying, Krishna svadamupagate dharma gyanadibi saha kalau nashta drisham esha puranarko dunoditaha. This Bhagavata Purana or Srimad Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. Then we have another verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.340. He's saying, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. In another place in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is another famous verse which is saying, Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi Shri Bhagavatam Ishyate Tatra Samrita Triptasya Nanyatra Syatra Tikvachit. If someone understands Srimad Bhagavatam, who is the essence of the whole Vedic literature, of the whole Vedanta philosophy, he will become so happy and so satisfied in his heart, he won't get happiness from anything else. It's such a elevated literature, the knowledge that we can get from this book. So we'll say a little bit about the history, how Srimad Bhagavatam appeared. So in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have description about that. The compiler of the Vedas, Srila Vyasadeva, was not satisfied even after writing such a great literary works as Mahabharata and Vedanta Sutra. Then Srila Vyasadeva's guru, Narada Muni, told him that the reason for his unhappiness was that he did not sufficiently and directly describe the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. Then he gave him the instruction to write a book that will directly describe the glories of the Supreme Lord. That is the spotless Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. In his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, 158, Srila Prabhupada writes, the compiler of Vedanta Darshana is Vyasadeva himself. Vedanta Darshana means Vedanta Sutra. Yet he is troubled. Although he is the author, so what sort of transcendental bliss can be derived by the reader and listeners of Vedanta, which is not explained directly by Vyasadeva, the author? Herein arises the necessity of explaining Vedanta Sutra in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam by the same author. So in other words, although Srila Vyasadeva gave so much knowledge, at the end, still he was not completely happy and satisfied. So he did such amazing literary contribution to the humanity at large, and still he was not completely happy. So why?
Depressed.
He was depressed, actually. Why? What was the reason? Well, here is the explanation, that he did not glorify enough and directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why something was missing in the great books that he wrote.
Prabhuji, so can you say, so the Srimad Bhagavatam, was it considered one of the Upanishads? And we are focusing on that because it's considered to tell more about the Supreme Personality? Can you clarify that?
Yes, technically, Srimad Bhagavatam is one of the 18 Puranas. It's known as Bhagavat Purana.
Okay.
But because it's direct commentary from the author of Vedanta Sutra himself, and Vedanta Sutra is considered the essence of all Upanishads. So from this perspective, we can say that Srimad Bhagavatam actually is the essence of the whole Vedic knowledge. Nothing is missing in Srimad Bhagavatam.
And then was it there before Srila Prabhupada had translated it? I mean, was it as well known and things like that?
Yes. In our spiritual tradition, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, this is our main book, Srimad Bhagavatam. Like in different spiritual traditions, let's say the Madhva Vaishnavas, their main book is Mahabharata. Yes. And Shri Vaishnavas, I think Vishnu Purana. So in the same way, our main book is Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the main book from where we are getting knowledge. And why Srimad Bhagavatam? What's so special about Srimad Bhagavatam? Now we are going to read a little bit, and you'll see it will be very interesting. Okay. But just to say something short, well, in many spiritual books, you have some parts of knowledge describing God. And generally, this knowledge is how great is God and how God exists. But hardly somewhere you can find knowledge about actually what is God doing. What is like, how God is enjoying in the spiritual world. This is very special and confidential knowledge. Like most spiritual books, they are explaining that God does exist. Believe God exists. But actually, what is God doing? Very little spiritual books deal with this, because it's a very deep and very confidential spiritual matter. Okay. So Srimad Bhagavatam is giving so many details about that. And we are going to go through them gradually. Through the
Okay, thank you.
Well, another thing about Bhagavatam, just shortly, is that Mahaprabhu, who is the Supreme Lord, he was basically preacher of Bhagavatam. He relished Bhagavatam, he propagated Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam was his, we can say, his main focus. And I think this is the best pramana we can get our hands on. If Lord himself, because Chaitanya Charitamrita actually describes how the Lord himself, he relished Bhagavatam. And this is something very special. Okay, anyway.
Hare Krishna. So we have one of the great Vaishnava acharyas, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, comments on this pastime between Srila Vyasadeva and Narada Muni in this way. So Narada, the guru of Vyasadeva, Narada Muni is saying, "You have not described well enough the spotless glories of the Lord, the superior position of Bhagavan's forms above all other forms, and the supreme attractiveness of his pastimes and bhakti, Srila Vyasadeva. But I have produced the Brahma Mimamsa scripture, the Vedanta Sutra." Narada Muni, "I consider this Vedanta Sutra scripture to be deficient. You are the writer of Vedanta, and if your mind is dissatisfied with it, then how will those who continually study that darshana, be satisfied. You are the proof that this book is insufficient. Then Vyasadeva again. But I have described the wonderful qualities and pastimes of Krishna in the Padma Purana, as well in others. Narada Muni. You have not described the glories of Vasudeva as much as you have described Artha, Dharma, Kama, and Moksha as the goals of human life, even though they are much inferior to the glories of Vasudeva. Though Vasudeva is the crash jewel of human goals, you have not described him as the goal of human endeavor. Though you have described the glories of Krishna abundantly in many places, they have been described only as a means of getting moksha. How can your mind be satisfied when there is a lack of regard for that which should have been given the most regard? So Narada Muni is accusing Vyasadeva. He is saying, yes, in few places you describe directly the glories of Krishna, but actually in so many places you describe so many other goals of human life that in between this, the glories of Krishna, they basically disappeared. It's like, let's say, you give a huge pile of clay to someone and you say, but no, inside there is like a very small piece of gold in one place in this huge pile. So what is the use? It's very difficult for people to understand actually what's the main topic, the most important topic. And also Narada Muni is saying, and even that you describe the glories of Krishna, you did not, in any place, you did not acknowledge, stressed on the point that our main goal of life is to develop our connection with Krishna, our love. Rather, you said that bhakti is very helpful to get moksha or liberation from the material existence, from the problems of life. So that was the accusation of the guru of Vyasadeva Narada. But then Vyasa is continuing. But I have described bhakti as being higher than liberation in many places in other scriptures. For example, liberation is the highest goal in visiting other holy places. But devotion to the Lord, prayed for by the liberated souls, can be obtained in Mathura, Padma Purana. And then another quote from Bhagavad Gita. But then Narada Muni again, he is saying, but you have not done so repeatedly. You must do so, because it is said that the meaning of a scriptures is revealed by repetition, as in the sutra Anandamayo Abhyasat. The Anandamaya Purusha, the Supreme Lord, because of repetition of words. Anandamaya Purusha is the Supreme Lord because of repetition of words. To indicate this, your mind will be satisfied only when you describe the glories of the Lord very clearly and with due repetition, since those glories alone are ultimately the most excellent. So basically from this quote, we are understanding that we may study many spiritual books, but our mind will find complete satisfaction if we try to understand very deeply and directly the pastimes of God. What is God doing? How is he enjoying? What are his relationships with his devotees? If we understand these topics, then our mind will get very deep happiness and joy. And this knowledge we can get from Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why after getting these instructions from Narada Muni, the great Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, and he gave very direct knowledge of the Supreme Lord, and he gave it repeatedly, again and again and again, chapter after chapter, canto after canto in Srimad Bhagavatam, directly the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna are described. So in this way, we understand that Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very sweet. And every word, every verse, every chapter is full of nectar. And the more we read, the sweeter it becomes. Actually, Srimad Bhagavatam will create a spiritual revolution in our hearts.
Just something. Actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that this is the proper way how to study Bhagavatam. That we have to read Bhagavatam until we faint out of ecstasy, of course, not because of some tamoguna. And then when we wake up from our ecstatic slumber, then we have to start reading again until we faint again. Okay, this is just, I guess this is for later stages in our life, after we are done with all other things that we have to do, when we finally have time to concentrate fully on Bhagavatam, it should be like something like this.
Yeah, so Bhagavatam, he will create complete revolution in the hearts. And Bhagavatam has the power to create complete revolution also in the life of the whole human civilization. It has this power. So all dirtiness in the heart will be destroyed. After spending few years of regular associating with Bhagavatam, we will see how our concept of life will start changing from egocentric to Krishna-centric. Krishna and his desires and his happiness will become more and more important, while our selfish interests and desires will stay behind. If we spend every day little bit time to read at least one verse of Bhagavatam, this will build up a relationship with Bhagavatam. And Bhagavatam is actually non-different from Krishna. So this will be our relationship with God. Srila Prabhupada is saying in a lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, given in Los Angeles, 5th of January, 1974. There is no literature throughout the universe like a Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no comparison. There is no competition. Every word is for the good of the human society. Every word, each and every word. Therefore, we stress so much in the book distribution. Somehow or other, if the book goes in one hand, he'll be benefited. At least he will see, oh, they have taken so much price. Let me see what is there. If he reads one shloka this life, his life will be successful. One shloka, one word, this is such a nice thing. Therefore, we are stressing so much. Please distribute books, distribute books, distribute books. A greater mridanga. We are chanting, playing our mridanga drum. It is heard within this room or little more. But this mridanga, books will go home to home, country to country, community to community. This mridanga. So the conclusion is that among all pramanas, Shabda can give perfect knowledge about the reality. And among the all revealed scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam is the best. He is the emperor among all pramanas.
Hare Krishna. So can you explain? I understand that the Srimad Bhagavatam is going to illustrate the stories of the presence of Krishna in the devotees and things. But why emphasize the Srimad Bhagavatam as opposed to just saying spend the time on the Bhagavad Gita?
Very good question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Well.
This is with the program, the lecture. So today's Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Bhagavad Gita 0. It's the other room.
The other room.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was the room. You know, he's
Yeah,
No
we
problem.
kept playing lectures.
Mhm.
No problem.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry.
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 Yes. It is said that Bhagavad Gita is meant to, Bhagavad Gita, of course, it's one of the most important books also. It's the foundation of our spiritual life. So generally, Bhagavad Gita is meant to make the non-devotees devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam is made to make the devotees pure devotees, or someone who is completely pure in his motivation to serve the Lord.
Interesting. Okay.
And Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is even higher level than Srimad Bhagavatam, it's meant to make the pure devotees pure, unalloyed devotees,
Mhm.
without any contamination. So all these books are very, very important. Just you can say they're like the most important books for a different levels in spiritual life.
Okay.
So generally, Bhagavad Gita is establishing the idea. We have this famous verse in Bhagavad Gita: Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami maschaha. Krishna is saying, give up all other duties and religions and just surrender unto me completely. So basically, become my devotee.
Mm.
Always think of me, become my devotee, pay your homage unto me, and worship me with love and devotion. This is the message of Bhagavad Gita. And now Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll see, he will start from this point.
Okay.
And then he'll go into much more depth. So this is the idea.
Yes, sir.
But we don't mind Bhagavad Gita. We like Bhagavad Gita very much.
Okay. All right.
Another thing is that Sambandha Vidya Prayojana. So, are you familiar with these terms, Sambandha?
Yes.
Okay, Sambandha, Bhagavad Gita is mainly Sambandha scripture. It
Mhm.
gives the knowledge about God, about the soul,
Uh-huh.
about the material energy, and how these three are related.
Mhm.
But then Bhagavatam is mainly Abhideya scripture. On the basis of Sambandha, we have to do something in order to attain Prayojana. Prayojana is the goal. So Bhagavatam deals extensively with the method of attaining the goal. What is the method? How to perform, as Tulsi Prabhu said, how to perform devotional service in a proper way. And how
Yes.
to practice in a way that it is actually enjoyable for us also. Shouldn't be just a formal, boring, tedious, once in a week going to the church or the temple kind of
Correct.
practice. Should be
Vibrant.
dynamic,
enlivening.
vibrant, and ultimately should be what Mahaprabhu came to give. Should be
Sure. Yeah. In your day-to-day life, you should incorporate it.
yeah, and it should be done with relish, with taste, with rasa.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Bhagavatam is teaching us rasa, spiritual
Okay.
taste.
Okay.
And also another thing, Srila Prabhupada explains that while reading Bhagavatam, we'll be spontaneously attracted to a specific relationship with the Lord.
Mm.
Of course, these are high levels of bhakti, but this is supposed to happen at one point. When we read through these pastimes of the Lord, gradually we will develop affection and attachment to a particular section of these pastimes.
Mm.
And this will
Okay.
be the initial stages of the reawakening of our eternal relationship with God. And this is given in Bhagavatam. Therefore, Bhagavatam is our main scripture. It teaches us the process of bhakti.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Can you type in the name of the spelling of the book? Because I
Yes.
like the name.
Srimad
Yeah.
Bhagavatam. We will do.
Okay.
We will give a task to Pandava.
And
Yeah.
okay. So we can purchase it or something on our end.
Sure.
Okay.
Or you can look for on vedabase.io. It's all there for you on the internet.
I think it's also there. Yes.
Yeah, it's online. How book is it?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So now the second thing that we are going to look is how Krishna is the highest form of God. So now we established that Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest of all scriptures. And now what is established in Srimad Bhagavatam is that from all different manifestations of God, Sri Krishna is the highest form of God. Now we know that absolute truth has different aspects: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Explained in a very simple way, Brahman means the Lord who is all pervasive. He is present everywhere in the form of his energies. And Paramatma means God who is half personal. Why half? Because Paramatma is the feature of God which is situated in the heart of all living entities. And to some extent, he is interacting with the living entities, but not completely. He is more like present in their heart as observer and as permitter certain things to happen in their life. Let's say they to get their karma. And that's why, from this perspective, the highest aspect of God is Bhagavan. Bhagavan means God who is present as a person, as a personality. That means he has a certain qualities, he has a form, he has activities that he's performing. So you may have a personal relationship with him. Now, scriptures are saying, in Brahma Sutra it is said, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. The Govinda, the primeval Lord, he is obtained only by pure devotion and not by studying of the Vedas. Yes. And he is Advaitam. He is without a second. Achyutam. He is not subject to decay. Anadim. He is without beginning. And Anantarupam. He has endless forms. So this is the nature of God. He has endless manifestations and endless forms. Now, all forms of God are perfect. But some of them are more perfect and some of them are most perfect. This is maybe a little bit difficult to be understood. Why? Because generally in the material world, we rather think in terms of something is perfect, and if something is less than this, it's not perfect. But in the case of God, because all of his manifestations are on the spiritual platform, all of them are actually perfect. And now from this platform of perfection, some of his manifestations can be even more perfect and others can be most perfect. So the most perfect form of God is Krishna in Vrindavana, Vraja Krishna. This is the most perfect form of God. In other words, from the point of view of tattva, tattva means philosophical understanding, all the forms of the Supreme Lord are equal. They are on the same level. But from the point of rasa or relationship, Vraja Krishna is the supreme manifestation of God. Why, from the point of rasa, this is the supreme manifestation of God? Well, because with this form of God, Vraja Krishna or Krishna in Vrindavan, you have the greatest opportunity of a relationship that can be exchanged. In with many other forms of God, the main relationship is based on awe and reverence, fear, the greatness of God. So the relationship that you can exchange in these situations, they are very limited. But when it comes to exchanging a relationship with Krishna as the Supreme Lord in Vrindavan, one can relish and can exchange different kinds of relationships. For example, one can have a relationship with Krishna as a servant and a master, or as a friend, or one can be even a parent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Can you imagine? God is the greatest personality in the universe, and still you are his parent, and you can tell him what to do and what not to do. Wow, that's amazing understanding. And even one can have a relationship as a lover with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So from one perspective, this is a mind-blowing information about spirituality, because generally in old world spiritual traditions, the main relationship with God is always relationship of honor, reverence, and service. We are the servants, and God is the great master, and he is above all, and we have to serve him and don't ask too many questions. Little bit, this is the mood. So now we are getting about a face of God, or a form of God, or a character that God manifests, in which one can have very, very, very deep and intimate reciprocation relationship with him. So that's something amazing. So Krishna is the Supreme Lord, the supreme form of God. And Krishna is superior to all the demigods, even Brahma and Shiva, and even to Vishnu. And that is confirmed in many places in Bhagavatam. The best proof for this is the very famous verse, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.28. There, in this verse, it is explained that all incarnations of God listed on the pages of Bhagavatam and other spiritual books are Amsha, Kala, or Pumsa, expansions of God or parts of the expansions of God. But Krishna is the original manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the whole verse is as follows: Etacham Shakala Pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indriyari Vyakulam Lokam Bridayanti Yuge Yuge. Translation: all of the both mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Shri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists or the devotees. So this verse is considered the most important verse in the whole book, Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's establishing the unique position of Krishna.
Yeah, this verse is called Paribhasa Sutra, and that means all other verses, not only from Bhagavatam, but from all Vedic literature, they have to be interpreted, they have to be understood in line with this verse. The analogy given by the Acharyas is just like the general on the battlefield, or the king, if he is at the battlefield, on the battlefield. He commands all soldiers. So in the same way, no statement from Shastra can be understood in a way that is opposing this verse from Bhagavatam. Okay.
Can you repeat the verse again, please?
Yes. The verse is, if you want to know the number, it's Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.28. All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Shri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them, all of those incarnations of God, they appear on planets whenever there is disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the devotees. This is the verse. So scriptures are establishing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And also all the great saints in the universe, they confirm this. And we have a verse from Bhagavad Gita. This is Bhagavad Gita 10 chapter, verses 12 and 13, where Arjuna is speaking and he is saying, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavam, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adidevam Ajam Vibhum, Ahustvam Rishaya Sarve, Devarshi Narada Tata, Asita, Devala, Vyasa, Swayam Chaiva Bravishime. So Arjuna is saying, you are the Supreme Lord, and all the great saints such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasadeva confirm this truth about you. And now you yourself are declaring it to me. So scriptures are saying that Krishna is the supreme manifestation of God. The great saints in the universe are saying it. And Krishna himself is saying that there is no truth higher than him. So from different places, we are getting the same information. Krishna is the highest manifestation of God. So one of the names of Krishna is Asama Urdhva. No one is equal to him and no one is greater than him. Indra, Brahma, Shiva, and even Vishnu cannot achieve his glory. Here are some examples in this regard. For example, in 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapters 24 to 27, we have a description of the Govardhan Liwa. So, I don't know if you are familiar with this pastime, dear devotees. I guess more or less. But shortly, it's a pastime where Indra becomes angry to the residents of Vrindavan that they are worshipping Krishna and not him. And he wants to chastise them. And when Krishna is understanding this, actually what is he doing? Just with a pinky finger of his left hand, he is lifting this huge mountain, Govardhana hill, and is giving protection to all his devotees, to the cowermen, to the gopis, to the cows, to the calves. All of his devotees from Vrindavan, they take shelter under.
What was Indra saying?
Yes, Indra, he sent a huge storm to come and basically create disturbance in Vrindavan. So after that, Indra realized, wait a minute, something is wrong here. So he understood that looks like this small boy actually is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, my master. And he went to him and offered very submissive prayers to Krishna. So this pastime proves actually that Krishna is on a higher level than Indra. Yes? And then we have another pastime, also from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahma, the first living entity in the universe, became bewildered, thinking that Krishna is the ordinary boy. Wishing to show off his greatness, Brahma stole Krishna's cow boyfriends and his calves and put them to sleep in a mountain cave. Understanding what had happened, Krishna expanded from his body replicas of all the cowboys and cows. Seeing how they are simultaneously present in two places, Brahma was bewildered. Then he surrendered to Krishna and offered very beautiful prayers, taking again his natural subordinate position. So that's also another story that shows how Krishna is the master of even Brahma. An interesting detail in this story is that actually there were three sets of cowboys. So the story goes that Brahma, he tried to steal the friends of Krishna to show how great he is. But because the friends of Krishna, they are actually eternal associates of the Lord, and they are under the influence of the spiritual energy, no living entity from this material world can touch them. So the moment when Brahma tried to touch them, spiritual energy, Yogamaya, immediately created replicas. And actually, Brahma stole these replicas. So these were not the original cow boys. The original cow boys and cows, they were immediately hidden from the spiritual energy of the Lord. So he stole replicas of those. And then when Krishna find out that actually he is trying to cheat, then Krishna manifested from his body replicas of all the cow boys and cows. So actually there was 3 replicas in this pastime. And of course, later when Brahma came and he wanted to offer his prayers to Krishna, Krishna suddenly, all these forms of cow boys and cows, they manifested as the 4 hands Narayan forms. And when Brahma saw this, he was like, what's happening here? Like, then he understood one small particle of the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and understood how insignificant he is in comparison with Krishna. So this pastime, and there are other pastimes, they are showing actually how Krishna is the Lord of Brahma, the first living entity in this universe. Then some people are saying, no, actually Shiva is the Supreme. He is the greatest personality. He was so great that he managed to drink the poison during the churning of the milk ocean. So he was so amazing. But actually, Lord Shiva also takes shelter in Krishna and accepts him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead on several occasions described in Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, when Shiva tried to protect his devotee Banasura, he had to fight directly against Krishna. Of course, that was a pastime, but there was a fight. And Krishna, of course, was victorious in the battle. Also, Krishna's weapon was also victorious against the weapon of Shiva. So not only Krishna was stronger than Shiva, but the weapon of Krishna was also stronger than the weapon of Shiva. So in this way, we are getting different proofs from Srimad Bhagavatam how Krishna is Asama Urdhva. No one is greater than him and no one is equal to him, and everybody is subordinate to him. Now, someone may object and he may say, wait a minute. Actually, Vishnu is greater than Krishna. Actually, Krishna is incarnation of Vishnu. He is part of Vishnu. Bhagavatam is also explaining this situation in almost the last chapter of 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 89. There is a story where Vishnu, attracted by Krishna's unprecedented sweetness, made a special arrangement so that he can have his darshan, so that he can see Krishna. This proves that Krishna is the highest manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Of course, in this case with Vishnu and Krishna, we shouldn't make too much distinction between them because they're actually the same personality, the same person. Just that in his form as Vishnu, Krishna doesn't reveal all of his qualities. He decides to deal with the devotees as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the master as the enjoyer. But there's the same personality. So we shouldn't make also too big distinction between them. There is distinction between Krishna and Brahma, because Brahma is usually a jiva, a living entity, or Krishna and Shiva, bigger distinction. But Krishna and Vishnu, Shiva Prabhupada gives the example of, a famous example. This is about the Shiva. This example is the very great personality who is in his office. In the office, he deals officially. Therefore, it's called office. No, I don't know why it's called office. But officially, that means everybody deals with him with awe and reverence, and he's the boss. But when he goes home, then his wife has some funny pet name that he calls him Poopsie or something.
Honey.
Whatever, and his children are just harassing him all the time. And so Krishna in Loka Vrindavana is like God in his home, and Vishnu in Vaikuntha is like God in his office.
Yes.
This is the analogy given by Srila Prabhupada, but they are the same personality. Okay.
Do you have some questions, dear devotees? Everything is clear. Yes.
So, in some Puran, it is written that Shiva is supreme. So, if somebody asks about this, that which Puran to believe, then how to answer that question?
In some Purana, we have a question. In some Purana, it may say that, okay, Shiva is the supreme. Yes, in different Puranas, different things can be said, because the Puranas, we have three kinds of Puranas. Puranas for people more in ignorance, Puranas for people in passion, and Puranas or books for people in goodness. So in order everyone to be enthusiastic to perform his duties, different things can be said in these books. So that certain people, they are
Inspired.
yes, inspired to perform their duties and to move forward in life. But if we are doing impartial study, as we gave some examples, we will see actually the greatness of Krishna and Vishnu above everybody else. Shiva is also a very great personality. Brahma is also a very great personality. However, there is a distinction between them. And now I will read something very interesting. Acharyas are giving very interesting technical explanation about the difference. So just please
Of course.
stay with us. Awesome. So, in the same purport to this first verse that we said is the most important verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada explains how Krishna is one without a second, and how he expands himself in the various parts, portions, and particles. And the learned scholars have carefully analyzed that Krishna has 64 principal attributes or qualities. All the expansions or categories of the Lord possess only some percentage of these attributes. So only Krishna have and manifest his qualities 100%. And as a general, his incarnations or Shiva or Brahma, they manifest the qualities that Krishna has to a lower extent. And now we'll hear here. So Krishna is the possessor of all these attributes 100% in full. His personal expansions, or the Vishnu Tattva, the Vishnu incarnations, so like Vishnu, Narayana, Sankarshan, they possess up to 93% of the transcendental qualities of Krishna. So that means they have almost everything that Krishna has, but Krishna has something unique. Then Lord Shiva, who is neither Avatara nor Avesha, nor in between, possesses almost 84% of the attributes or qualities of Krishna. And the jivas, the living entities like us, possess up to the limit of 78% of the qualities of Krishna. In the conditioned state, as are we in the material existence, this is even less. But if the living entity is perfect, as in the case of Brahma, he can develop these qualities up to 78% in quite a big extent. So this is something very interesting about the difference between Krishna, Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma.
Whose commentary is this, Guruji?
This is the commentary of Srila Prabhupada to the verse 328, Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 328. Of course, he's quoting the Acharyas. In addition to that, in the Nectar of Devotion, it is described that the Jivas have 50 of the 64 qualities of the Supreme. Shiva has 55, and Vishnu has 60 of those qualities. But only Krishna has all the 64 qualities in full. So this 78% means that we can have 50 of the qualities of Krishna. But even those 50, we don't have them in a full extent. We have them in a very minute, yes, limited extent. And of course, Shiva has more qualities, 55, and Vishnu can have 60. But even Vishnu doesn't have 4 unique qualities for Krishna. And so, who are those 4 unique qualities that Krishna has? Do you want to know them? Okay. So, first one, he is the performer of wonderful, variegated pastimes, and especially his childhood pastimes. They are extremely sweet. So the very sweet pastimes of Krishna, this is a very, very unique quality. It's called Madhurya Lila. Everybody, Vishnu also has pastimes, Shiva has pastimes, but the pastimes that Krishna shows, they are very, very unique. No one else is showing such amazing pastimes. Then the second quality is he is surrounded by devotees, endowed with wonderful love of Godhead. So these are the Bhakta Madhurya. His devotees, they are showing very deep and intimate relationships with Krishna. This is what we are going to look in this seminar. And then the third quality is he can attract all living entities all over the universes by playing his unique flute. This unique playing of Krishna on his flute is known as Venu Madhurya, extremely sweet flute, extremely sweet sound of the flute of Krishna. And the fourth quality is he has a wonderful excellence of beauty, which cannot be rivaled anywhere in the creation. So his form, his beauty is amazing. And this special sweet form of the Lord as Krishna, Shyama Sundara, is known as Rupa Madhurya, the most sweet form of all the forms of the Lord. So these are the 4 qualities that are very unique and very special for Krishna. And even Vishnu does not possess them. Lila Madhurya, extremely sweet and amazing pastimes. Bhakta Madhurya, his devotees are amazing and they have very special, deep, intimate relationship with Krishna. Venu Madhurya, his singing of flute is amazing. And also, we don't see anyone playing flute. Vishnu is not playing flute. Shiva is not playing flute. Brahma is not playing flute. It's a unique quality of Krishna. And Rupa Madhurya. His form is so amazing and so sweet that no other form in this creation or in the spiritual world can be compared with this. Only the form of Srimati Radharani This is the only exception. Only form which is even greater than the form of Krishna. So, how can we be not attracted to Krishna if he has all these amazing qualities? The more we understand Krishna's greatness, the more we realize how much he does for us, how he always takes care and protects his devotees. The more we are attracted to him. Everything that we are attracted to now in this world looks somehow or other attractive only because of Krishna's potency being present in this object. So whatever is attracting us in this world attracts us because with a small part of his energy, the Lord entered in this object. That's why it's attractive. Like, for example, you see some amazing car on the street and you're saying, wow, why this object is attracting me so much? Or a man see a beautiful woman, or a woman see a beautiful man and they feel attracted. Why we are attracted to this? Or something else, some other object that attracts us. Actually, we are attracted for all these objects because Krishna entered in these objects with his energy, and that's why actually we are attracted to them.
But can
But
we
then-
say that those are material objects? And why are you trying to stretch it and say it's more than just a material object?
Because if we actually understand that the things that are attracting us in this world, actually they are not attracting us on their own, but they are attracting us because small part of the Almighty is present in them, then how much more attractive will be the source? If just a small part of the majesty of God is present in some object and we feel so much attracted to it, how much more attractive will be the source of this energy? This is the idea. Always when we are attracted to something, we can try again and again to come to this idea. Wow, wait a minute. If I'm so attracted to this thing, whatever, this iPhone or this computer or this relationship, what about the original relationship with the source of all beauty, the source of all sweetness, the source of all happiness? This can create such amazing feelings and that in my heart.
But how do we, I mean, it's not like we can spiritualize that attraction to that object, right? I mean, it doesn't help us increase our bhakti in any way, right?
Well, if we are Krishna conscious, it will. Because this is the idea of Krishna consciousness. The idea of Krishna consciousness is not that, okay, let me throw out all material objects from my life. And let me start with my iPhone, computer, and the TV. Just throw them out of the window. Okay, now I'll become more Krishna conscious. No, the idea is that start to see how everything in your life is connected with Krishna. Good or bad, Krishna is present everywhere, in every moment of your life. The more you can see this, the more Krishna conscious you will be. And we will start.
I can understand that. I mean, there's many different ways everything is a material manifestation of Maya, which is Krishna's energy. So yes, I mean, you can say everything belongs to Krishna, was created by Krishna, but I mean, I'm not sure I would say, I'm not arguing, please don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying more from an understanding standpoint to say that the material object somehow represents Krishna or is going to increase my bhakti. I'm not sure,
Maybe
how I can translate that into Krishna
Yes.
consciousness.
I can try to explain a little bit. So Maya, what is Maya? According to the definition of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maya is when we don't see the connection of something with Krishna. This is Maya. So perceiving the existence of something without its connection to Krishna, it's called Maya. Or in other words, the idea that I can have this object for me, for my sense gratification, without seeing its connection with Krishna. Now, if you see the same connection of this object to Krishna, although it's the same material object, this is not Maya anymore.
But you'll view it differently then at the same time, that
Yes.
material object.
Yes. Like, for example, let's take a simple example, a man and a woman, and they want to exploit themselves. Okay, the man wants to enjoy the body of the woman and vice versa. So they see themselves as just object that can be used for sense gratification. Now, if the man start perceiving the woman that, wait a minute, actually, this lady, she belongs to Krishna. She does not belong to me. And actually, my role is that I just have to make opportunities for her to be engaged in the service of Krishna. This is totally different vision.
Okay.
Or for example, you have your phone, which is like apparently material object.
Right.
Now you take a vow. Wait a minute, because this phone is given to me by Krishna, I will not use it for Maya. I will use it only for Krishna service. Wow. This becomes very powerful. Yes?
Correct. Yes. Okay.
It's material in a sense that
Right.
it's from matter, but actually because we are seeing it, perceiving it through our Krishna consciousness, actually we don't perceive it as a Maya. It won't become the reason for our degradation. Rather, by using this object for the pleasure of Krishna, it will become the reason for our elevation. This is the idea.
I think that's a good analogy. I'm just saying that I think we need to be careful because we can sometimes take that we can justify things in our mind which may not be there. So,
I do agree. Yes, everything can be justified. I'm just trying to explain from philosophical perspective how, if we are developing gradually our Krishna consciousness, at some point we'll be able to see how everything is connected to Krishna, and that's why it's meant to be used for the pleasure of Krishna.
Okay.
And then we won't have Maya in our life anymore. This is the idea. So actually, this is the end of our second statement, we could say, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is the highest manifestation of God, and everyone else is subordinate to him. So until now, we dealt with two topics: how the greatest pramana, or book from which we can get knowledge about God, is Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this book, it is stated, it is proven that from all manifestations of God, Krishna is the highest. And now, gradually, we will enter into our third topic, which is kind of, we are coming to gradually to the essence of our seminar. So, okay, we have God, and he is God, he is the supreme, everybody else is under him. But now, how is this God enjoying life? I mean, if the goal of life is enjoyment, what is he doing to be happy? What's his job? What's his duties? From where he's getting his happiness? What is God doing apart from just existing? So now we are going to look through the answers of all these questions. So Krishna is always ready to serve his devotees. We have a statement in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 86th chapter, verse 59, where Krishna is described as Bhagavan Bhakta Bhaktiman. He is completely devoted to his devotees. So the Lord, although being the greatest personality, decides to enjoy in a very particular way. So Krishna is known as Purna Bhagavan. That means complete God. He is completely self-satisfied. Atma Rama. That means he doesn't need anyone else. He does not depend on anyone. Svarat. Rather, Everyone depends on him. Ekale, Ishvara, Krishna, Ara Sabhabritya. Everyone else is his servant. And still, his greatest pleasure is to take a position that is subordinate to his pure devotees and serve them. That's the greatest pleasure of God. Amazingly. So, let's go to Bhagavad Gita. Let's start from there. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna takes the role of Arjuna's charioteer. So he's the driver of the chariot of Arjuna. Thus, ignoring the fact that he is the Supreme Lord, he takes greater pleasure playing the role of a chariot driver of his devotee. He is getting more pleasure in this way than serving him. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus he is addressed herein as infallible. As a charioteer, he had to carry out the orders of Arjuna, and since he did not hesitate to do so, he is addressed as infallible. Although he had accepted the position of a charioteer for his devotee, his supreme position was not challenged. In all circumstances, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hrishikesha, the Lord of the total senses. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. He takes greater pleasure in his pure devotees assuming the advantageous position of ordering him than he does in being the giver of orders. Since he is master, everyone is under his order, and no one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is the infallible master in all circumstances.
Okay.
So, the Lord has unlimited potencies which automatically fulfill all his desires. In this way, there is no specific work for him to do. He is completely independent. And still, he always acts in a way that is very pleasing to them. For instance, when Krishna and the cowherd boys were taking their lunch on the bank of Yamuna, their cows disappeared somewhere deep in the forest. Krishna personally went to find them. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada comments, the Vedas, the Upanishads, say that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do personally because he is doing everything through his energies and potencies. And nonetheless, here we see that he took personal care to find the cows of his friends. This was Krishna's causeless mercy. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. All the affairs of the entire world and the entire cosmic manifestation are working under his direction through his different energies. Still, when there is a need to take care of his friends, he does this personally. Krishna assured his friends, don't be afraid. I'm going personally to search for your calves. This was Krishna's causeless mercy. So these two examples, they are bringing it a little bit closer to our topic. How actually Krishna is getting more pleasure when he has the opportunity to do something for his devotees than if he is just the order giver. and he is seeing how his devotees are running here and there to fulfill his desire. This does not give Krishna so much pleasure as when his devotees are ordering him and he can do something personally for them. Now, as a conclusion for today's class, I'll just tell you a short story. Maybe you already know this story, but I like it very much. So that's why I want to share it with you. It's a story connected again with Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, there is a famous verse. It's Bhagavad Gita 9:22. Krishna is saying, Ananya Cheta Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashaha. Ananyas Chintayantumam Ye Jana Pariupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yoga Kshema Vahamyaham. For those great devotees who are constantly remembering me and thinking about me, I personally protect whatever they already have. And if something is missing in their life, I personally am bringing this to them. So there was a great acharya, great saint. He was one of the commentators of Bhagavad Gita. His name was Arjuna Acharya. When he came to this verse and he wanted to write a comment, he thought, wait a minute, Krishna is using the word mam, yoga kshema, vahami aham, me. I am personally taking care for them. But he thought for a minute and he said, wait a minute. Actually, Krishna is not doing it personally. Actually, Krishna is doing it through his energies. So I think this word is wrong, the wrong word to be used. So he scratched the word aham. And he commented in his purport. Actually, yes, Krishna is taking care for his devotees, but actually he's doing it indirectly through his energies. He's desiring it, and his energies immediately they are fulfilling his desire. So then, after writing this, he went to take his noon bath in the river and to come back to have his lunch. Meanwhile, on the door of his house, someone knocked, and his wife opened the door, and there were two boys, one blackish and one whitish. And they were bringing huge boxes of food, so many different preparations, ghee, sugar, flour, fruits, vegetables. And they gave this to the wife of this Arjuna Acharya, but she could understand that they are somehow fearful. They are afraid of something. And she said, who are you? And why you are bringing all these things at my home? And why you are scared of something? And they said, oh, actually, we are scared of your husband. And she said, what do you mean? Why you are scared from my husband? They said, because he actually wants to make us disappear. And then actually she looked and she said, she saw how they have like scarves all over their body. And she said, who did this with you? And they said, actually, your husband. And then they left this boga, these provisions, food, and they run away. And then she couldn't believe that her husband can do something like that to these young boys. And she was so disturbed from this that she was trying to cook lunch for the husband, but she was completely out of her mind. And somehow or other, she managed to finish with the cooking, and she just sat down and started eating without waiting for her husband, which was something like unheard, I guess, at that time in their family. So when the husband came back, opened the door, and just saw his wife sitting alone on the table and eating without him, he said, what's happening? How is that you are eating without me? What's the problem? And she immediately just, in a little bit angry voice said, how can you be so cruel? How can you act in such a bad way with these small, cute boys? And Arjuna Acharya, he was a little bit, hey, wait a minute. What do you mean acting in a bad way? I didn't do anything to anybody. And then she said, no, they were here. I saw them. They were so afraid of you. And they had these lines on their body. And they said, you did this to them. And he was even more confused. He said, what? Who came? What? Like, I don't understand anything. She said, yeah, these two small boys came and they brought all this food here and they said it's for you, but they were very fearful. And he couldn't still understand. He said, who are these boys? How they were looking like? And she said, yeah, two very nice boys, extremely beautiful. One was blackish, one was whitish. And when he heard this, he understood. Krishna personally came to bring me food, just to prove the point that he is personally taking care of his devotees. And then immediately he rushed in his room and immediately removed the line that he put above aham, that Krishna is personally taking care of his devotees. So this will be the main topic in our next two sessions, how Krishna is personally reciprocating and is taking care of his devotees, and we'll go more and more into depth of this topic. So if you have some last questions, you can ask. Okay, if not, thank you very, very much for your attention. I hope to see you next Wednesday, same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to say something.
Daddy, I think, yeah.
Okay, Hare Krishna. I would like to say something at the end, very short, in reply to Prabhuji's question at the very beginning. Why are we chanting this mantra which is not directly, apparently connected to Krishna? So everything is connected to Krishna. Krishna is the source of the whole creation. And Vedanta Sutra, it is said that actually every word is a name of God. So there is no such thing as something that is not connected to him. And Krishna in Bhagavad Gita explains, I am the knower of the Vedas and I'm the compiler of Vedanta. So in this sense, the devotees, they can understand the true meaning of all Vedic mantras and can explain them in a proper way in connection to Krishna. Therefore, we can use all kinds of Vedic knowledge and we can show how it is actually meant to glorify God, and God is Krishna, and how it is connected to him. Therefore, there is no problem. We can use this mantra or that mantra, and we can always explain the meaning. Of course, we always stay in the boundaries of our tradition, but actually this is part of our tradition. The Vaishnava tradition is the original culture. Everything else is just different offshoots of the original Vedic culture, which is pure devotion and service to Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I think,
Yeah.
I think Daddy, we have a question.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure.
So the knowledge of Krishna is very deep. I don't think anybody can understand it completely in a lifetime. Let me come back to the the relationship between Krishna and Shiva. There's been a lot of confusion about that. I think the first time that we moved to Arizona, specifically Tucson, some people were saying, well, look, we don't do Shiva here. We do Krishna here. We don't do Shiva. The Shiva is a lesser being and all of that. Is she really a lesser being? I mean, is the relationship between Shiva and Krishna not complementary? Is it adversarial?
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I disagree with the person. I said no. for all the festivals we have here, we must include Shiva. And he said, no, we don't do Shiva here. You know, it's all Krishna, and Shiva is a lesser being and all of that. Is that true?
Yes and no.
Okay.
First of all, you know, we have our founder Acharya, and she
Yeah.
has given us the proper procedure for our daily worship. So the worship of Krishna actually includes the worship of all living entities, including Shiva, because everything is part and parcel of Krishna. We don't respect Shiva because he is the greatest Vaishnava, and the difference between Shiva and Krishna, the analogy given by the Acharyas, is just like when you have milk, this is Krishna. When the milk turns into yogurt, this is Shiva. So they are, in a sense, the same, and in another sense, they are different. So Shiva is not a ordinary living entity, just like us. He has his own category of Shiva Tattva, which is between Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva. It is higher than the Jiva Tattva. And we pray to Shiva, for example, when we want to enter the holy Dham, we pray to Shiva, who is the master of the false ego, to remove our false ego so that we are able to appreciate the holy Dham. So in this sense, we are also followers of Shiva, but in the proper way, as he wants to be followed by worshiping Krishna.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Also,
All right.
maybe another thing we can say about Lord Shiva is that Lord Shiva, he has different manifestations. Like the original Shiva, he is in the spiritual world, in a place known as Shiva Loka. So practically this original Shiva, he is not different from Sankarshan or from Vishnu. So from this perspective, you could say is almost the same like Krishna. That's why one should not disrespect Shiva. But this original Shiva, he incarnates or he manifests, Hare Krishna, he manifests in our material universe as the different Rudras. Those are personalities who are meant to destroy the universe when the time comes, the 11 Rudras. So those, they are considered demigods. So in a sense, there is a difference between the original Shiva, who is in the spiritual world, and the manifestations of Shiva in the material world. Sometimes the manifestations of Shiva in the material world can be even living entities like us. Someone who is very, very qualified, he can take this position of one of those demigods, the Rudras, and he can do this service if he has these desires. So it's, yes, I agree, it's a not easy topic to understand. But as a general, we, the Vaishnavas, we worship Krishna, but as Pandava Prabhu said, we don't disrespect Shiva. Because in Bhagavatam it is said that Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava. Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu. Namnaganam yata Ganga, Devanam Achuto yata Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu, Purananam idam tataha. From the rivers, Ganga is the greatest. From the gods, Achyuta, Krishna is the greatest. From the Vaishnavas, Shiva is the greatest. And from the holy books, Puranas, this Purana, Bhagavad Purana, is the greatest. This is what the verse is saying.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon next week.
Hare Krishna.
All right. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
See you next week. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Hare Krishna.
Recording. Do you record? Yeah. Okay.